Hello, everybody. Can anybody hear me? Let's see. No, I have to join live within the group. I don't know. This is my first time doing video. I've got 2 viewers. Hello. Comment in the post where you're from. Welcome. We'll be getting started shortly. Thank you guys for coming. Can you hear me? What? Oh, yeah. I don't know. Hi, Becky. Thanks for commenting. I'm glad you can hear me. This is my first time doing this, so I'm a little all thumbs. Can you hear me? Hear me. Hi, Patty. Thank you guys for joining. Great, thanks, Heidi. Just to remind you guys, you're here to learn about the different icing consistencies, as well as some different texture finishes with the different icings. So if that's what you came for, you're in the right place. I'm learning that there's a bit of a delay when I talk to when you guys hear me, so I'll try to keep that in mind for tonight. Welcome. Where's everybody from? I'm so excited too, Heidi. I'm so nervous as well. I'm more of a behind the scenes person. So this is very rare for me to be in front of a camera and talking to a crowd of people. Hi, Judy from Michigan. We'll get started here in a few minutes. I wanted to give people a chance to get on. We had a little over 1,000 say they were joining, so I'm not even close to that total yet for viewership. So just want to give it a couple more minutes. Yes, Becky, I get you. I'm very behind the scenes also. Welcome from Missouri as well. So just so we can make the most of our time tonight, I'm going to just do a little intro on myself, and that will give us time to get everybody here. My name is Kandace Emory, and I started my baking business a year ago this month, so this is my anniversary month. Yay. I'm not sure why I decided to start something like this in the middle of a pandemic, but honestly, I've always loved baking and being creative. I've made cakes for my boys. Usually just once a year, I'll go all out and do something decorative for them. And I did that for years. And then my oldest is in the Navy and Huya. And so I wanted to send him cookies when he was in some training. So I don't know, I wanted to do decorative cookies. So I tried it out last November, and it was a hit. I shipped them, and they completely broke everywhere. But you keep trying, you keep learning. So I've been doing this a year. I have not been doing it full time. I am originally from Wichita, Kansas, and I was working full time while doing cookies. And back in May, we moved to Naples, Florida. So now I'm a Floridian, and still working this part time job, and hope to go full time in January. So I'm a mom of boys. Like I said, my oldest is 21, and my youngest is 7. He's in second grade, and we have a dog named Frodo for all you animal lovers out there. Um, Hello, welcome from New Jersey and Canada. Thank you for joining. Um, so that's a little bit about me. I am Team Beads. For those of you who know what that means. However, I don't use a ton of beads in my pictures, but I'm definitely for them when it looks right. This year I've done over 1,600 cookies, so not a ton for those of you that are doing it as a full-time gig. And I've shipped to 15 different states. So I do ship in about, a third or so of my orders get shipped. So that's exciting. So I kind of wanted to get into it. We'll give it maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, but tonight I'm going to be talking about icing consistencies. And I know there's a lot of information out there on icing consistencies. And just to have full transparency, I did a lot of YouTubing and Pinterest and just learning that information. And way to go, Linda. Awesome. Congratulations on your daughter making chief. Um, so I got a lot of my information from YouTube and just watching a lot of stuff, teaching myself, but also I kind of want to give a shout out to How to Cake It. I've taken some of their classes. I think it's Melinda or Melissa. I can't remember the name of the gal who does one of the decorative cookie classes, but great. If you get a chance to do one of their classes, I would say do it. They're about $20 to $25 a class. Just take the intro class because I think it'll also help you learn more about icing consistencies too. And what's great about those classes too is you get documentation that you can keep and of course replay just like this for future use. So I want to go ahead and get into it so I make the best of your guys' time. I know it's a busy time of year and you guys are probably crazy with orders right now, as I am. So tonight, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stand and do this. So I've got my husband here. His name is Michael, and he's going to be helping respond to questions as they come up. So he is keeping an eye on that. Hi, Stacy from South Carolina. And I don't think I mentioned my business name, the Curated Sugar Co. On Facebook, it's at Curated Sugar Co. On Instagram, it is the Curated Sugar Co. So check it out. I'm still not quite a techie, and I don't have a ton of followers yet. So go and follow me. I would love the encouragement. So I wanted to get started on working with consistencies on icing. So I'm going to stand and do this, and I'm on my computer, not my phone. I went back and forth on whether to use my phone for this, but I'm going to do my best to get as close to the camera and maybe even have Michael kind of move the camera around so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But again, please ask questions along the way. I will do my best to answer them as I can. Stacy, on your question of best way to ship cookies, I'll note that and we'll respond to that later on after if we have time, and I'll make sure to write it in the comments regardless. So let's get started. So today I just did a batch of royal icing. For those of you that know how to do royal icing, and this will be all royal icing demo. I know some of you asked about buttercream and other icings. I just haven't trained a whole lot in those areas, so I didn't feel comfortable sharing about that just yet. But when you're mixing up your royal icing, you want it to be a stiff peak. So that's when you take that whisk out and you turn it up and it kind of just sticks up. So if you're there, that's great. That's a great place to start when you're getting ready to mix your icing. So the way I do this for all of my cookies, and to also I learned this. I'll try to find the YouTube link as well. I learned to keep from having multiple bowls with multiple colors. I try to go from light to dark as I'm working my icings. For those of you that are looking for a quick method not to dirty up a bunch of dishes. So I always start with my whites and then go to my light whatever pinks and then move to darker colors and black and browns at the end. So I hope that helps. So what I'm going to show you is just going to be with a white icing. Like I said, this is my fresh icing that I just mixed today. It is a bit runny just because I'm in Florida and it's kind of humid here. But it still has a pretty stiff, can you guys all see this clearly? I'll wait a few seconds. You guys can see how stiff that is. It's not coming off the spatula. So that's what you want when you're beginning, okay? And I usually do a lot just because what I end up doing out of this mixture is I'll be doing the detail, the hybrid, and the flood in that order. So for those of you that don't know the verbiage, at least that's what I use. I think I did learn that from How to Cake It, so don't want to take credit for that. But your detail is going to be, kind of your driest consistency, and there's going to be it's not going to have any movement once you push it out of the bag. So when I'm doing it, because I don't like a very dry detail. So when I'm pushing out of the bag, I don't like there to be breaks between me running maybe a long pipe, a long line, okay? So I try to give it a little bit more. I like the elasticity so it kind of sticks together and won't break. So I'm looking for, with my detail, I'm looking for a tip. So when I talk about this, the stiff tip, kind of like, let me see if I can do it like that. What I want from my detail is I want a tip that goes whoop, like that flips over. That to me tells me my detail is ready to go ahead and put it in the bag, and it'll hold its shape but give me enough elasticity when I'm working with it to either outline a cookie or something like that. So to get it to that, I usually always have a bowl with a small teaspoon there, either an eighth or a fourth of teaspoon. I would not go any higher because really there's times that if you go bigger, it can really just one scoop of water can make a difference between a detail and a hybrid. And that may not be what you want. You can always course correct by adding more powdered sugar, or if you're too dry, you can add more water. So you can go back and forth. If that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add probably 3/8 teaspoon and get that mixing in together. I find the larger Pyrex bowls or a larger bowl works better than the smaller, 2 cup or 1 cup, just because, especially when you're dealing with colors, it helps it to mix in a lot better, this wider cup. And so here is where, I don't know if you guys can see it. The camera angle is kind of weird. I'm not quite there yet. It's flipping over, but it's really a slow flip, which I feel like it's gonna be dry. So I'll give it like one more scoop of water, mix it in really good. And you can see, I don't know if you guys can see the angle. Let me know if you can't. I'll try a different angle. But it's starting to do the little floop, like flip over, like it goes whoop, like it's a weak peak or a soft peak. I think that's a great detail, to have because it's going to hold its shape. So I'm going to go ahead and bag that real quick. With detail, you don't need a whole lot of icing, depending on what you're doing, just because it's used for borders, for lines, for thin lettering, and typically that I'll do maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons, and I usually will flatten it out and tie it up. I think we learned on the Facebook group here that if you spin it, it shoots everything to the edge, so it really kind of makes it a lot easier to get everything down to the edge of your bag. So there's my detail. It's about 2 tablespoons. I do mark my bag. But I do mark my bags because as I go, and depending on how many colors you're working with a set, you just want to be clear when you're grabbing the bags. At least this is what works for me. So I do a D for detail. Hope that helps. So as we're moving on to a hybrid, so we're still dealing with the same bowl, same icing. We're at the detail level. All of this is at the detail level. So what we're going to do for hybrid is it's more of a kind of a, what I would say is a 10 to 20 second flood. And so what I mean by that is that if it just sets by itself, it should level itself out on its own within about 10 to 20 seconds. That way, and hybrids are great for kind of, if you want to do lettering, large lettering, and you're wanting to fill in, it's great for that. Hybrids can be used for borders as well, but it just depends on kind of what you're bordering and things like that. They're great for filling in if you want to get the kind of that poofiness to your, the puffiness to your icing. If you don't want to have to, and I'll show this method here in a little bit, if you don't want to have to fill in with the detail first and then do a hybrid or a flood over it, hybrid by itself should give you that puffiness and works really great for in a small like cookie. This is about a 2-inch cookie. It'd be great to flood this with a hybrid versus a flood because it'll keep kind of that puffiness. That saying is if you put some air on it too. I always have a fan or something on mine, or if you're using a dehydrator, which I don't use yet because it hasn't been in the budget yet. So showing how to do hybrid, again, I know from experience I'm going to add about 3 to 4 of these 1/8 teaspoons of water. I'm going to mix it in, and please know that I do not get this perfect all the time. Sometimes I am spot on, and other times I'm having a day where everything is just wanting to go flood, and so I have to course correct a little bit. So if you drag your spatula, let me scrape this off a little bit so you can kind of see the spatula. But if you drag your spatula and you sit here and just kind of let it work itself out and settle for 10 to 20 seconds, or if you're shaking it, even if, because most of us usually shake or jiggle our cookies, if it levels out like this, which it is, your hybrid is ready to go. The other test I like to do for a hybrid, this just works for me, is I like to bring it up and see if it is going to come down in big old clumps. And that's usually for me like a great hybrid, because then, especially for letters, when I go to do letters, I know it won't just, go all over the place, but it will stay kind of puffy as letters need to stay. So I think this is a great hybrid. I'm going to probably add just a little bit more water just because that's my take on it. But again, it's that 10 to 20 seconds, and I can put all these kind of details about each one of them in the comments for you. 10 to 20 seconds, run your spatula over It should settle itself either by on its own or kind of by jiggling, but then you're ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. For hybrids, like I said, it just depends on what you need it for. I would probably do maybe, I don't know, a quarter cup in here. I find that my detail's always the smaller amount. Hybrid has a little bit more amount. In my flood, I always have a lot just because I'm constantly flooding cookies. Anyway. And so my hybrid, instead of putting a capital H, I do a lower H because for my handwriting, sometimes I confuse my F with my H on the flood. So that's one way for me to not get confused. How are we doing? Any questions I need to address?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Tracy asks, can you prevent the icing from separating after it sits in?
If you say a little, I mean, you should be able to mix up your colors and, you know, come back to it in an hour or 2 without it separating a whole lot. But like these that I'm going to be showing and doing some work with, these were mixed up a while ago, and I actually, you know, did these cookies earlier today. You should be able to just massage it. So anytime you're dealing with maybe a day-old icing, say you mixed up, which I do this a lot, I mix up the night before because I know colors will actually settle in a lot better if your icing's mixed up the night before. But again, it's always down to your schedule. But massaging that, you're going to see the water separation, especially with floods. Your details, you typically don't have to do this to. Hybrids, it just depends on how water you got them. Like I can see the darker part here is, and then the lighter part of this red. So it just tells me I need to massage it in. If you massage them for, you know, get them mixed in, massage it for a few minutes, test it out on a cookie or a napkin. Make sure your consistency's there. If some of these set for a day, so say you're like I've had this happen where these have set for a couple days, but I need the same color in a new set. I will go ahead and squeeze these out into my bowl. And even if I just am using the same amount, same color, not adding anything to it, just to freshen it up to get it fully mixed in, I will do that if it's been sitting there a few days. But if it's just a day, you should be able to massage it and get it all mixed in. I hope that answers.
Patty asks, do you add white color to your icing?
Do I add white color to my icing? No, I typically don't. And I know you can, and I've even heard that if you want a crisp, I guess, white color to your icing, that adding a touch of blue, I think I've read that somewhere. Just a tinge of blue will give it that really bright white. But I've honestly, all my whites have turned out pretty good. Never had a complaint, and it's just the, I think mine tends to have maybe a tinge of cream undertone just because of the vanilla I use in it, but my almond extract is clear, so it stays pretty white all the time. So thanks for the question.
Marie asks, if you have icing left over in the bag for the next day, do you put that in a new bag, or how do you seal the cut in?
The cut in, so on your detail, and even your hybrids, they'll kind of self-seal, like they'll just dry out at the end. The only caution I would say with that, and I don't do this a whole lot unless I'm taping up the bag to go put it in the freezer to use the color another time. I will squeeze out just a little bit on the end, flip the end over, and tape it with like some tape, Scotch tape or something. And that way when I'm ready to go use it again, I can undo that. But really your details and your hybrids, they'll dry themselves out right at the tip. So really like this This has been sitting all day today. It's dried itself out. So you just want to kind of squeeze it, and there you're ready to go. It's coming out. I don't really need to massage it or anything. It's ready to go. I hope that answers that question. You can tape it. I always, at all costs, even though bags are fairly, inexpensive, I try to do everything before I empty out a bag to put it in a new bag, just probably from a pure laziness perspective. But let's get on to the flood real quick. I want to show you guys. So we went through same bowl, same icing, went through our detail, our hybrid, and now we're going to do flood. So with our flood consistency, we want it to settle. It should settle here in about 5 to 10 seconds. And really, if you're new to making cookies and icing, the flood consistency is really what that is. It's meant to flood over the cookie to even it out. It's usually, used as your base color. So if you're building colors on top, that is what your flood is. So I keep adding a few things of water. So you can have what I would call a drier flood, or you can have a really runny flood. I think there's people out there that would recommend that you do something like you want it to run like your shampoo. I find it very difficult for me to work with, let's say, bigger cookies like this, almost like a 3 or 4 inch wide cookie with really runny flood, because I find myself, for some reason, I'm just icing happy and I almost put too much on constantly. So I tend to go with a drier flood for larger cookies. And what I mean by drier flood is, so what we're going to do is this. Again, I think this would be more of a hybrid. It is a little bit runny, but it is breaking apart. It's not a consistent run. So what I would do is probably add 1 or 2 more of the 1/8 teaspoons of water. Where I usually stop is when I have it running, but it breaks. There's not a consistent runniness to it. Probably one more spoon of water. I don't want it to get too runny. This will also help dry tines and puffiness. And now we're getting a little runnier than what I would like, but it's still not staying together. So this is a good time to stop and go ahead and bag. We can take it to the full runniness if that's what you prefer. You can also, again, do your spatula test, and you can test out, how quickly it's going to take its shape. And it's going. It's about 5 seconds. It just took its shape. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that bag here. The bags I'm using are about, I think, the 12-inch bags. And for those of you, because I'm still learning, so I try to create processes and things that are going to help me out. A flood bag for me, one I can tie. When I put my flood in it, I know that flood is going to flood about 12 to 14 cookies, depending on the size. My normal size cookies I make are about 3 to 4 inch cookies on a standard for my customers. So if you're trying to gauge how many flood bags you need to make, that might be a good rule of thumb to kind of go with. Any other questions that came in about flood?
Not about flood, but Judy asked, where did you find the tiny bags?
Oh, that's just these bags. That was a detail, and it probably was bigger when I was working on a project last week, and I cut it off because I don't like these strings. I don't like the tails. And when I start out with a detail bag that might be this size, and I get down to here, I've got a long string. So I'll go and retie it, cut that off, because I'm not very graceful in the kitchen, and sometimes those hit other cookies and will hit the frosting and stuff like that. So I didn't really have tiny bags. It's just was one of these later on in the process. Any other questions? Okay, thanks for hanging in with me on this. So that is really kind of the lesson about the different floods. And so now I wanted to get into kind of how we use those different consistencies. I don't know if you guys saw that I posted. We're going to work on looking at how to do a hammered technique. This is like a little coal, like you would get for Christmas. I don't know if you can see that, but that's where we're going to do the parchment paper technique. The embroidery, sorry, I'm not very good with cameras here. The embroidery technique with a brush, what I call the dab method. Let's see here, I don't know if you're seeing this correctly or not. There. So you're seeing kind of make it look like it's a fuzzy hat with the ball at the top. And then I know somebody out there asked about tassels. And then if we have time, I will go ahead and show you how I do lettering. I typically don't write my lettering first before I use my icing to write on here, because I have a projector. So, but in this case, because I wasn't sure if I was using my phone or not, I just decided to write this on so that we can kind of get a close up of what's going on when I go to use detail to outline this, and then flood to do the rest. Or not flood, sorry, hybrid to do the rest. Any questions? Okay. So to start, let's see here.
Vicky just asked, do you ever dip? So do you use the flood consistency?
I've never tried dipping, but I am toying with the idea because I have my biggest order coming up in January for about 500 to 600 cookies. And that is one way I've been thinking about doing it, because I will be applying a thin layer of a printed logo with some icing border. So I thought that might be a quickest way to be able to flood a bunch of, 250 white cookies. So great question. If anybody in the comments has an answer to her question, that would be great. I would probably say you could do a flood. I don't know that I would go any thinner, because what happens is that I think you're going to have run. It's going to be so runny that it's going to run off the side. You could probably get it to that flood consistency that's streaming, kind of like your shampoo would in your hand. You could probably do it with that, but I wouldn't go any runnier than that otherwise, unless you have a very even cookie, which I have not accomplished that yet, as far as baking a very level cookie. I mean, you can see my cookies, they still have a bit of a hump. So you just don't want it to kind of flood off, from the sides, because then you're going to have an uneven cookie. So really, I think it also depends on what are you doing on top of that flood base. What decorative things are you going to be doing? Is it going to just be a plain cookie? If that's going to be the thing that's seen, I still think I would go with nothing thinner than the runny flood.
Tracy would like to know, how do you get the cookies looking so awesome?
Oh, yeah. So the gloss, you're probably talking about this. It's got a little bit of a sheen. The things that I've learned and read and watched is getting air on them. I keep a fan. I have a little Vernado desk fan right now that I keep by me. So when I finish a cookie, if I'm needing them to kind of hold up like this and we're not moving to putting parchment paper on them or something, and I need them to set up, getting air on them, I found keeps them shiny like this. I think, is it Sweet Sugar Bell? I think she's got a blog. I think that's the one I kind of read. She might have some information too. I've read where she shows the different finishes from if you don't have air on it, a fan, or a dehydrator, because it can give different glossinesses to it, if that's a word. If that makes sense. Okay, so I want to go ahead and get started because we've got about 30 minutes, and there's with the not necessarily cold, but I really want to show you the hammered method, so we do have to give it a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and do the cookie or the coal piece where we show you how to do the parchment effect. Since it's Christmas and I've seen this done, it's going to make it look like a coal piece. I put some shimmery stuff on there to make it look like coal. Another way I've used this is dinosaur cookies. So I've done like a skeleton or of a dinosaur on top of like a brown earth that look like this as well. If you want to see pictures, you can go to my Instagram or Facebook to see that. But I'm sure you guys can come up with so many ideas about this. But I have tried wax paper before. I have not found that that works, so I would recommend sticking to parchment. And you just want to crumple it up, which is so easy. I love this. You know, some of those, the finishes and the textures are actually so easy to do. You're going to want to do them over and over again because it makes life a lot easier. So crumple this up, get it as crumbly as you want it, flatten it out, and we're going to get it ready to go on a flood cookie. So we're going to outline this cookie. Bear with me. We're going to outline this cookie in detail. Can you guys see? I hope so. I'm trying to get as close as I can here. This is just a habit. You don't need to do this with this, but like I always do this with to keep things puffy. I will go ahead and put a kind of squiggles of the detail in there, which helps keep my cookies puffy. And then now I'm going to come through with my flood. And I made this flood the other day, so I'm not sure exactly how runny it is, but it's probably how I normally do it. And I know you'll see videos out there where everybody gets theirs perfect. You know, they don't have to do this squiggle, but this is just how I work. I like to start in the middle and bring it to the edge. This helps me from avoiding the flood from falling over the side by bringing it to the edge and just using your scribe to kind of kiss, for lack of a better word, kiss or just barely touch that detail border that you just piped on there. So it keeps everything contained. If you do end up with a runnier flood, like I was talking about, like a shampoo, that's okay. Go ahead and do a thicker detail. And what I mean by that is, let's see, you want to do like a thicker line. So you're just cutting your hole wider. I don't know if you can kind of see the difference, but my black is thin and my red is a little thicker, and that's just from cutting the tip on your bag a little bit, you know, higher up on the wider part of the bag. So give it a bigger wall. So you think about it as a wall. You don't want it flooding over. Okay, now that we've flooded this, I'm going to go ahead and get this one. You just take your paper get it as crumpled as you want it, flatten it out, and you're just going to place it on top. And then you want to kind of just gently push it in until you start seeing the parchment kind of soak in or seep into that black. And that's it. That's all you do. Set this overnight. At the very least, it needs to sit about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. But with most of my cookies, I let them sit overnight. Today I did this one in about 4 to 5 hours, and I should have picked probably a different color, but it gives it that really bumpy coal look. Anyway, so that is the coal and that crumpled paper effect. The next one I want to do is the ornament. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this prepared and go ahead and we're going to use a hybrid. One of the hybrids we just did. So I'll outline with the detail white we ran, and then the hybrid icing. And the reason I'm doing the hybrid is just for one, it'll dry faster, and two, this doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to be using a tool like this to put it in, make the little indentions once we give it about a 10-minute dry, 7 to 10-minute dry. I've also used the other end of this tool to do a smaller indentation, so you can give it kind of two different looks as well. So let's do that real fast so we can get it drying. Here I did a really thick detail wall. I don't know why I did, it's just that's what it cut. It's a pretty thick. And then my hybrid, because I'm trying to work fast, so I get through all this. Again, I still like to fill in to keep the puffiness. Michael, would you turn on that fan behind me on like low? It's already plugged in, just turn it on the lowest setting. All right. So again, just bringing that icing out to the edge. If I'm doing this, on an order, I would have focused a little bit more and went ahead and brought it out to the edge with the pipe. I'm just trying to move fast, get this going here. Let's see here. Trying to get the hybrid to go down just a little. Maybe I should have done that in a flood. This is what I did earlier today. There we go. You could do this in a flood. You would just want to let it dry just a little bit longer. Because if you use a flood and you're wanting to do this hammered method, like I said, I'm using hybrid. I gave it about 10 minutes and then I came in and pressed. You can do flood. I would give it then maybe 15 minutes, because if you go too early, which I did on a test run, I'll show you on this hat. If you go too early, you're still going to hit wet, super wet icing, and then it's going to pull off and it's not going to look right. Okay, so I'm going to set this on the fan behind me. And we're going to let that go here for about 10 minutes. Okay, I've got 2 questions.
Valerie asked, what thickness cookie do you prefer?
I just bought a new roller. I think it's a 3/8. is what the roller, it's a wood roller. I can share the link of what I did. I think I was just doing what almost like a fourth or a early on, and I just found that that was too thin, and my cookies were drying out fast. So now I do 3/8. I know some people do half, but I don't like a super thick cookie. So a good balance between the cookie and the icing as well.
Stacy would like to know, do you outline right from the edge of the cookie?
Yes and no. Most of the time I do. It just depends on the design. There's a lot of beautiful designs that don't outline on the edge of the cookie, and I've done many like that. I could actually show you. I did. Let's see if you can see this. I did this as a logo last week for a customer, and so I kept it in just because I was doing so many. I find I have less tendency for any run over or flood if I kind of stay into the cookie a little bit. So when I'm doing 16, 70 of the same cookie, I'll bring it in probably, what would you say that's like a quarter of an inch or something from the edge. It just looks like it keeps a really clean, kind of a clean look. But most of the time, depending on the shape, I'll carry it to the edge. So it's really just your preference and what design you're working on for your customer. Oh, yeah, I use just a little Renato fan. It's has 2 settings. It's not that great. It's just something I already had, so I didn't have to spend money on it. I can link Renato. I think they're a Kansas-based company. Yeah, you could just use that. You could use a bigger fan if you wanted to.
Stacy asked, how far in advance do you make your cookies?
I'm trying to, especially when I go full-time baking, I'm trying to have just a bake day, as you guys have probably seen other people post. So I'll probably move forward. I typically will like to do, because I do work, so I typically like to do my baking for the following week, either on the weekend, or I'm going to shoot for doing bake days Mondays. So I know I have, just like you guys probably have random orders due at different times. Not everybody can, do a pickup Friday night or Saturday. So like I have an order due coming this Tuesday. So I went ahead and baked yesterday for that Tuesday order. My cookies, depending on when I'm icing them, and depending on if I'm individually bagging them or not, in my pricing, I offer individual bags just because of, the pandemic and stuff. It just seemed easier to do that. But I'll keep them either in a covered container. I'll either keep them in like a covered container like this, or I will go ahead and put them in a baggie and to keep them a little fresher. So the order that I've got coming up, the large order I've got coming up in January, I'll be baking ahead of time and freezing. So again, it just depends on how much you got going on and kind of how you need to, plan your time. Is that it? Okay. All right, so the next method we're going to do here is trying to get over here, is the embroidery look. I've done this for multiple different cookies. I just stuck it on a stocking for the Christmas theme. Super easy to do. We're going to do this with a hybrid, with a hybrid consistency, because it's easier to work with. If you do this with a detail, that detail is going to still be too dry. And when you're trying to pull it, it's going to kind of I don't think it's going to give you the look that you want. I've done this on little baby onesies for girls, like little ruffles on their shoulders. You could do it for dresses. I've done it. Oh, this is great for, can't believe I didn't think of this first since I'm in Florida. This is great for waves. So if you're looking at doing like an ocean, it's great for waves, as waves coming into a sandy beach. So with that, Let me get my hybrid here. I'm probably just going to demo the toe part just because it's easier to see. I'm trying to get as close as I can. So when you're doing this is create your line, whether it's going to be a straight line or some scallops. Just go ahead and create your line. As you can see there, I've done that. If you're doing these where you're kind of creating levels, you want to start with the one furthest out because then you're going to be building on the next one and then the next one. So just think about that. Like if you're doing a sleeve, you would want to do that as well. So that's what we're doing. So for this, I use a Wilton brush. I'm trying to see if I can get up here. It kind of looks like it's got a little bit of a straight cut on the top. You could probably use a rounded one, which might be a little bit better. I'm just using what's in my arsenal right now with what I have. So this is the one that works best for me. And what you will do is you'll take that brush and go about halfway into your line and pull out. So you're making about half of the line disappear into the embroidery part and keeping the other half as is, if that makes sense. Sometimes the brushes can get a little gunky as you go, so you don't have to use water or anything, just wipe it off. And we'll just keep going. This is a fun detail to add, and it creates a lot of visual interest and so easy to do on cookies. As I'm working through this, one tip when I give newcomers, hard lesson I learned is I had what I thought was a wise idea one time when I'm working with flood, and I quite couldn't get the flood to go to the edge, and it was starting to dry out, get that crust. So I dipped my scribe in water and was like, oh, I'll just make it a little wetter there and bring it to the edge. Don't ever do that. You will end up with a sticky area that will not dry. And I do have evidence of this on some pictures. I did a motorcycle theme and a black jacket on one of the sleeves. I ended up doing that. And you can see that it just creates almost like a water crater, and it never dries. Sorry, I just had that in my head. I wanted to share it with you. Okay, so that's really all you do, and then you just let it dry. Super fun. You can do something very ornate and girly with this. You can, like I said, do a beach. So I think the sky's the limit with that one. Any other questions? Okay.
Valerie asked, what's your favorite font to use?
I probably need to get out of my box. I go to Canva. I use Canva a lot to build out what I want on my cookies. I know there's a limitation with fonts there, but I could put in the comments some of my favorite fonts, what I use from there. But then there's other fonts, like I've done Disney fonts, where you need to go to like a free font location on the internet to kind of look at that and download it. Probably anything that's more flowy, like a handwritten font or kind of a vintage font. Those are typically my favorite. I don't go to the block fonts a whole lot. It just depends again on the design of what I'm working on. So I hope that helps.
They asked, how prevent the bubbles showing up after the icing dries. It's when you apply the icing, it's perfect. Once it dries, you can see holes.
Yeah, I don't usually have a whole lot of problems with holes, but I would definitely say um, that spinning, when you spin the icing, once you fill it, this is supposed to help get a lot of those bubbles out of your bag before you start icing. The other thing is, I think when you're tapping your cookie to even stuff out, those bubbles will start to come to the top. Make sure you're popping them. Make sure you're getting rid of your bubbles when you're flooding a cookie. You're going to see, sometimes it's hard to see the bubbles. It takes, I think you practicing and you're training your eye, especially on white, because you'll start to see just a little bit of a gray area under the surface of the white, and that's a bubble. And as soon as you pop or kind of pick it, you're going to pop it. So just to be aware of time, I wanted to get through things real quick. All right, we're gonna try to hammer this. I think I've let it set long enough. And then we'll quickly get to the other things. I'll keep going for those of you that want to stick on to show you the tassels, the dabbing for the Santa hat, and even if you want, I can hang on to show the lettering as well. So this is just something I got on Amazon. I think it's actually a fondant tool, a cake tool. But in this case, oh good, this is working great. I don't know if you can see, but you just lightly press in and it's making that indentation. And it's great because it's not super wet under there, so it's not going to stick to your tool. I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Or you can use the smaller tool to give it that hammered look. And then once you get through this, you'll want to let it dry, fully dry, like overnight or whatever length you use in your dehydrator. And again, I mean, it creates such a pretty finish. And when it's painted, I mean, it's amazing. It looks awesome. I love this. Here's some silver. Okay, questions? Yeah, okay. All right, to do the dab effect, to get that kind of fuzzy look on the Santa hat, we're gonna do the hybrid finish. Go ahead and flood or fill, the areas first on your cookie. And then we're gonna take a hybrid and just put some on there. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm using this Wilton brush and it's got more of a rounded head to it. And it's just dabbing. So we're gonna kind of take it out to the edges. And the reason I use hybrid is because the detail is not going to be wet enough. I don't feel like it's going to move with you to give you that fuzzy look. And then the flood probably will not hold the shape as you're dabbing. It'll probably want to flood back into kind of a level, evenness to it. And that's really kind of all you do. Super, super easy. If you're doing a big area, you may want to get a little bit bigger head on your brush. So that way you can get through it faster and cover your area a little bit better. There you go. Okay, tassels, moving on, going to our detail work. So I don't know if you saw before, here's an example of tassels. This is all done with detail. I'll do a few on this cookie. I'm not going to do the whole cookie just due to time, but that's what that should look like. So I've got a red detail. I'll probably just do a red and a pink. I don't know if I'll mess with the green. This is a very thin detail line. I typically would not do this for a string with tassel. This very thin line I would probably do for lettering. So with the tassels, I usually like to create a bit of a ball at the top and kind of shake it so you get all the bumpiness of detail out of it. Because detail, I mean, it will settle just a tiny bit. So there you go. And then start bringing it out. And depending on how wet your detail is, like I said, I like to keep a wetter detail. And in that case, what I would recommend is maybe do your first layer of tassels. And give it just a little bit of, air time. And then come back and maybe add a few more. To give it some thickness.
For the detail, Lisa asked, how much did you cut off with that flood?
Oh, yeah, I can demo here on the flood because it won't really go anywhere. You always want to start off, airing on a shorter cut. So I don't know if you can see my tip. I'm trying to work off this computer here. I just cut off a very slight tip. So I don't know if you can see the seam of the bag. I always flatten my bag down to the tip here and then cut off this way. And I would only cut off just a very little bit first and then test it on your on a paper towel or something, and then see if it's what you're wanting. If you want it thicker or if you like the thin line. But I would recommend testing it because again, it comes down to what are you doing. If all you're doing is outlining for flood, you can cut a little thicker hole. If you're doing tassels like this, I would probably recommend something a little finer. But does that answer your question? Any more questions? Okay. All right. So last, just to go with time here, and I don't know if you guys can see this. I've got a kind of ho ho ho. It made me laugh because I was thinking of, I think, Corey Miracle with her ho meme. Anyway, so with lettering, it really just depends on what letters you're dealing with. So on straight lines, you really are going to be well served with just your detail. If your hybrid's a little drier, yes, you could do your line detail, but I would outline all this to me in detail and then come back with my, usually come back with my hybrid. Because I have, in this case, a little wetter detail, I can actually go ahead and line this out and fill it and it should kind of level itself out. So let's try this out here. Not very good at doing this standing up. Sorry, this is such small lettering here. Again, you can take it and shake it, and it should kind of just even itself out. Okay, yes, 2 questions.
Tracy asked, how do cleanup mistakes when layering icing on top of dry ice?
Sometimes you can't, but other times, like earlier today, I started this backwards and it wasn't looking right. And so I knew the green part was already dry. So I just took, because I knew the icing was still wet, I just took a paper towel, not a damp one, just a dry paper towel, and wiped it off. Sometimes you won't be able to recover from that, but if you're doing that to put something back on, you should be able to cover up that mistake if that's kind of what you're talking about.
Marie asked, did you outline the ho-ho-ho with a food marker?
Yes. Yes, I outlined, and like I said, I don't typically do this, and I just flooded this cookie today, so that's why the pen went through. You see that dark dot. I don't recommend doing that, but I did it quickly today for this demo. But yeah, I just used an edible food marker to outline the detail. That way I could go back in with the icing, the detail icing, to write the letters. It's not a great look of my letters. Sorry, I apologize. You can see all my work on my Instagram and Facebook. I'm usually a lot slower and do more detail work here, but what? Okay, sorry. Oh, the battery's going. Why isn't this? Does my PC? All right, so I think we're heading towards the end of this. I'm not going to fill this in because I just want to make sure I'm using everybody's time wisely here. Are there any other questions, any other things you want to, I guess, understand or see when it comes to icing consistencies? I'll do my best to explain it. All right, well, I think that is it. I appreciate you guys joining. Thanks so much. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram.